Hi folks, welcome back to Lewis on Film with me, Lewis. Today, The Batman is available to see in cinemas now. I saw it at a screening last night and there's a lot to talk about on this one, so let's get started. So first of all, The Batman then, it is co-written and directed by Matt Reeves, who did the Let Me In adaptation, Let the Right One In adaptation called Let Me In. He also did Rise and War of the Planet of the Apes, the two previous Planet of the Apes films. Starring, of course, the much publicised casting of Batman, Robert Pattinson, who, just for the record, is excellent. He was a very good choice for this incarnation of this version of Batman. I think he does a really good job. Zoe Kravitz as Selina Kyle, Catwoman, absolute spotlight stealing performance from her, truly brilliant. Andy Serkis plays Alfred, Jeffrey Wright plays Commissioner Gordon, John Turturro plays Falcone, Paul Dano as the Riddler, and Colin Farrell as Penguin. And it is dark. There's no origin story here either, so we all know the Batman origin story by now. Family killed, grew up orphan, uses his father's family's wealth to fight the injustice in the city that he grew up in, Gotham, which ultimately killed his father. It's a serial killer film. And the very first scene we see is the serial killer claiming one of his victims, who just happens to be the mayor. And as the film progresses, Batman comes and investigates the crime scene. Batman is essentially the detective in this serial killer film. So Batman is the Clarice Starling in the Silence of the Lambs. Batman is that character in this scenario. And more political figures keep getting killed, and more clues and messages pop up for the Batman to solve and to figure out what's going to happen next. The Riddler eventually reveals himself, and once he does, things go from bad to worse, and Batman has to be there to save the day, of course. But. So, as I've said, it's very dark. It's a very gritty version of Batman. Rated 15, so it's not for kids at all. It is rated 15, lots of swearing, lots of violence. I agree with the rating of it being 15. As I've said, the opening scene is the serial killer claiming his first victim, the Riddler. And from then it goes on to Batman introducing himself in narration and showing his place in the city, introducing Gotham in this particular world as to how it is. I don't think the narration was needed, personally. I think visually the film did everything right without the narration. You could have had a bit of it, maybe, and then just moved on. I don't think the whole narration was needed. I'd sort of lost interest in what he was saying whilst I was watching it. And yeah, I don't think it was. I think it was overkill, personally. In this first act, bearing in mind I haven't gone past the first act yet. In the first act, the film does take its time getting going, but once it does get going, it does really go. The middle act is excellent. I really, really love the middle section of the film. In which it's got the very famous scene. Obviously, it's in the trailer. It's got the scene that I think everyone will love the most, which is the car chase in the Batmobile. And speaking of the Batmobile, it's probably my favourite version of the Batmobile. So in the 80s there was in the 90s versions of Batman, there was the Batmobile was impossible. It was a crazy comic booky looking vehicle, but it was impossible. Like, could he realistically see over that hood? The engine is under this massive hood, which is big. It's got weapons in there, so you believe that they're in there. It's got a shield, which is okay. You believe everything exists in that car, but can the car convincingly move? You know, you suspend disbelief to enjoy the film. Fair enough. the Nolan versions of the films, he has a tank, essentially. He has a very mobile tank. The tank which is designed by the military to jump over rivers so it can build bridges. But with it being a tank and a real machine that you believe moves, and did move in actual fact, if he goes over a car and carries on, if he goes round a corner, crashes into a wall but carries on, or through a wall and carries on, and takes a hit from a rocket launcher and carries on, you believe it because he's in a tank. It makes sense. You move on, you believe it. This film, he has a car, a classic car with a thruster on the back, which means that he's going 100 miles an hour chasing someone down a motorway where the cars are coming at you and you're going past cars, trucks and everything else, and if he makes one wrong move, he's toast. He is done. It adds to the danger, it adds to the excitement, and it's one of the best car chases I've seen in years because it feels real, it's physical. There's a lot of dash cam footage throughout the entire film. In fact, a lot of it, the scenes inside cars, they're done on the dash cam, and it's really, really well done. It's all very physical and it works really nicely. Leading me on nicely as well to cinematographer Greg Fraser, who is a 2-time Oscar nominee. He's up for an Oscar this year for Dune. I think, personally, he'll be up for a 3rd Oscar next year with this film because it really is excellent. I think it's brilliant, beautiful, so well lit, so well done. And again, relying on the physical things to make it work, and adds another layer to the film, you know, especially given that the Dark Knight films were done physically. It kind of invited these films that have to do it physically, so that it looked real, and it does look real. It works. It's really nice. And so Greg Fraser, the cinematographer, makes it just as real with the lighting and the camera choices very, very nicely. I've already mentioned that everyone's on top form, performance-wise. The Penguin, in particular, Colin Farrell, turning in one hell of a transformation performance, really, really good. And every time he was on screen, I was loving it. Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz, a spotlight stealing performance. She's really fantastic. And the fact that she's one of she's one of very few number of women in it. There's 2 major female characters in the film, and the fact that she's a very petite presence as well, clearly one-upping the men in every scene she's in, just shows how good she is and how much credit she deserves. The action, I read a review earlier on of this one saying that there was a guy who said that the action in it is brilliant from start to finish. I actually don't think there's that much action in it. There doesn't need to be a lot of action in it. That's not the point. But I don't think there's action in it from start to finish in terms of it being a lot of action. The action's good, but there's not a lot of it. So I disagree with that. But there you go. But the film is a serial killer detective film. As I've said, Batman is the Clarice Starling in this film, and it's taken a lot of influence from the likes of David Fincher's Seven, from the likes of The Bone Collector, films like that. But the thing that is interesting here is that we know who the serial killer is because we know Batman, we know the territory. It's revealed in the trailer who the serial killer is. But so the mystery is, why is he doing what he's doing? And whilst the why is fine and works in the capacity, in a very similar way to what The Dark Knight did, in the capacity that he's not after money, so what is he after? And that works nicely. But the end result did leave me with a bitter taste in my mouth, to be honest with you. I just don't think it worked and blended as nicely as they thought it would. That's just my opinion. And I'm not a Seven fan, is the other thing, so that could be it. But the overall thing essentially is it is all about conflict and the possibility that it doesn't matter what you do, you may not succeed, but you need to keep trying. And that's evident in it. That's the big picture here. And I think that does work, but it also doesn't flow as nicely as it should. The ending, for me, it's problematic. There's things that I can't discuss about it because it's a spoiler, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but it didn't flow well enough for me. It clearly couldn't decide how it wanted to end, so it just kept on going. I think it could have ended a bit earlier. I think it could have actually started, with the exception of the first scene, because the first scene is very, very good and essential, and just after the first scene, when we first meet Batman, I think that scene's absolutely fine. But I think it could have been shortened. I think we could have dived a bit further into the story, a bit further along, and not have lost any time in exposition. So, shaky early doors, fantastic middle section, and an uneven ending, I think. That is not to say I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping I would, but I did enjoy it, and it's a good film. It's a very good film, in fact. Like I say, there's a lot of very good films out there which people argue aren't as good as they think they are, and vice versa. But this one is one that I think will prove popular. As I said, rated 15. Lots of the swearing in it. There's violence in it. Yes, it's a Batman film, but it's a dark Batman film. So, shaky early doors, fantastic middle, uneven ending. Not perfect by any means, but a good film. The sum of its parts make it work and make it fit. As I keep reiterating, everyone's on fine form. It's well directed, fantastically shot, so well produced. The design of the thing is really nice. The physicality of it really adds to it. The characters all need to be there. They're all part of the story. They're all vital. And yes, it works. I just think that the mystery itself isn't as gripping as I wanted it to be. I think that is ultimately my real problem with it. Which there's bits of dialogue which when I will watch it again one day. I'll probably watch it with subtitles on, because I was in the cinema and I was struggling to understand bits of it, because it's not necessarily even because of the grovelly Batman voice that Christian Bale did. It's not even that it's that. It's that some bits are nice and are, for the sake of mood, soft and delivered in a certain way. And I struggled to keep up with some of it, but that's just the way it works sometimes. So, a good film, a good comic book film. Not as good as The Dark Knight, I don't think, but not many films out there are as good as The Dark Knight, really. So, a good Batman film. It is a good Batman comic book. In fact, you know what? I don't want to say it's a comic book film. I want to say it's a graphic novel film. There's a lot of influence in it from Long Halloween, and various other Batman tropes as well, and influence from other places, as I've said, David Fincher's Seven. So, yeah, anyway, it's good. It's a good film. Go check it out. I think you'll like it. It's rated 15. It's a long 3 hours. So, I mean, I'd say I do think it's a long 3 hours. I felt the 3 hours go, whereas The Dark Knight is 2.5 hours. It felt like it was an hour and a half. So take from that what you like, but do go check it out. I think do go check it. You'll like it. I think prominently you'll understand and respect it, even if you don't think it's a masterpiece. I don't think it's a masterpiece myself, but I did enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have liked to have done, but it's a good film with problems. Take from that what you will. Take care, folks. All the best, and I'll see you next time.